All right, we have some breaking news that we want to tell you about, and it's happening in the area of where former President Donald Trump's New York criminal trial is taking place. This is the scene right now in Lower Manhattan. This area, I'm told, is just across the street from the courthouse where that trial is taking place. This is the aftermath of a fire that happened just a short time ago. And the details of how that fire started are, that's information we're still working to sort through right now. As you can imagine, there are a number of officials there on the scene. You also see barriers there surrounding what some have indicated was perhaps an area where protesters were designated to be in that particular area. Now you see a number of officials. What we know is this. A fire broke out. We did see one person transported from that scene, and I'm told that our Jericka Duncan is there on the scene now. Jericka, what more can you tell us? I know details are still coming in at this point.
Yeah, this just happened not that long ago, and I can tell you right now, based on what I'm looking at, is a bunch of investigators in the very spot from the video that I saw from our producer, Luisa Garcia, who was there to capture this terrifying video of someone appearing to have set themselves on fire. It is unclear the condition of that person, but we can assume they are dead. You can still smell the smoke in the air because, again, this just happened moments ago. The place that you're describing was an area where a lot of people who were supporting Trump at his first criminal trial were located. Now, over the last few days, I've been out here starting day one. I was here the second day. Obviously, there was no court Wednesday. Didn't make it out Thursday, but was on my way here to back up Robert Costa, who's obviously covering the trial inside, and smelling it as I'm coming up. Really here to cover some of what activity does happen outside, where, again, you have the Trump supporters roped off, and then you had people who were not in favor of Trump on another side. The police have been very careful about making sure that folks are separated, but it is in the spot normally where I would have seen Trump supporters, where that man apparently poured gasoline on himself and set himself on fire. I, again, just saw some of the images and pictures from it. It is horrifying. I don't even know if we're able to show what I witnessed and what hundreds of people who've been out here covering this trial witnessed. I've never seen anything like it, honestly, and I'm just kind of looking, if you will, to see what is happening at this hour. Again, but this just happening moments ago. Someone setting themselves on fire here in front of the courthouse where the criminal trial for Donald Trump is taking place.
And Jericka, we just want to let our viewers know we are not showing that video that you're describing. And for our viewers who may just be joining us, again, the details of this, as Jericka is spelling out, are very disturbing. And as we wait to hear more from authorities, we should mention that I understand people inside the courthouse have been told to remain there. And Jericka, describe for us a bit more just how the level of sort of official presence has been throughout the course of this trial. We see the officials standing there now. I imagine there are rows of media that have come to cover this very high-profile case. Tell us what you have seen with respect to an official sort of presence there, both from the local NYPD, the FDNY. What does it look like day to day, and what does it look like now?
I would say this entire perimeter is sort of blocked off with barriers. You have police here, people that I'm sure are special investigators, if you will, but I see the FDNY where I'm seated or where I'm standing. I see probably about 15 or 20 investigators in that area, that spot that I was just telling you about, where the man set himself on fire. But traffic is sort of at a standstill. I even jumped out of the car that I was in to try to race over here and get in front of the camera as soon as I could. But even this area has been just congested the entire time that this trial started. And as you mentioned, you're absolutely right. Hundreds of media are gathered here from around the world. When I started first covering on day one, I literally took a line with my camera. It took me 1 minute and 34 seconds just to gather the amount of people that are here stretched out in front of the courthouse. So a huge presence right now. But again, FDNY, police, investigators surrounding the area, roping us off, even telling us normal entrances that I was able to come in. I had to go a little bit farther to enter to this live location. So I think there are so many questions people have about, the moments leading up to that. But obviously you see somebody do something like that, which is not something that you see every day. I've never seen anything like it personally. And you just wonder, what their motivation was or the point of all of it. We don't know. We really don't know. I'm sure there will be a news conference in the coming, 30 minutes or so. That's usually how things work. And we are all here just kind of, I think, in shock and awe, honestly.
Yeah. And Jericka, as we wait for official word from authorities who are in the very early stages of their investigation into what happened, I want to turn for a moment to what happened inside the courthouse today. I know you've been covering this as you outlined. We know now that there are...
As I say that, Lon, if I could break in, there's a pamphlet. There's a bunch of pamphlets that were just blown by the wind. The media outlets, if we could grab, I think we're trying to get a sense of what this man may have been carrying, these pamphlets.
Okay.
Folks are reading it right now. Again, this is just happening. A gust of wind just blew a number of pamphlets. Police are now going over the barricade to get that because it could be used as evidence to try to understand what this person was trying to do or what this was really about. The point they were trying to make, obviously drawing attention to themselves. I'm seeing somebody use a tripod now to just grab one of the pamphlets. Police ripping it away.
Yeah. All right.
We don't know what that was, but literally a gust of wind just bringing forth what could be evidence or an understanding of what this person's purpose was in setting themselves on fire.
Yeah. All right. So we'll wait for word on that. And Jericka, just turning back quickly to what was happening inside the courthouse today. We know that there was a search on at the start of the day for alternate jurors. What more can you tell us about that?
To be honest with you, Lana, just because I literally was coming here from another assignment to back up Robert Costa, I know, of course, that they are still talking and questioning potential alternate jurors. But in terms of some of the details, I can't sit here and honestly say I know exactly what was happening within the last hour. But I know we do have people that are on the scene I could grab, or if you give us a second, switch us out. But we do know that they're still selecting jurors. Luisa, was there anything in particular?
I'm told, Jericka, that
6 alternates have been selected.
That's right.
6 alternates have been selected.
Yeah, and if you could, Jericka, I know things are very much in flux there, but in terms of the search for jurors, I know that earlier in the week you had been talking to people about that and how in a case such as this, as high profile as this case is in a city like New York City, it was going to be a very sort of difficult kind of task to try and find people who could be impartial. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that is the number one question. That's something that the defense has brought up many times. Donald Trump himself, the idea of having a fair trial or getting a fair trial. But when we did sort of what we call MOS or man on the street interviews with people, it was clear that everyone knows this man's name. Everyone knows who Donald Trump is or has some level of an opinion about him. But this process has been a lot of sort of back and forth. As in the very beginning, we had 7 jurors that were selected, only to find out on the second day that 2 decided that they could not be fair and impartial. But things obviously moving along as of yesterday, and then today hearing that there are 6 jurors. I'm just going to read a quick note that just came in from our producer, Graham Cates. Spoke to 2 witnesses, both visibly distraught. One man said he just burned himself. It was so fast. Another described the person throwing pamphlets in the air before pouring a liquid over his head, at that point realizing that he was going to do something terrible. So again, just kind of transitioning back to why we just kind of broke into to the rundown, the programming, to tell you about something that was happening right now. But as far as the trial is concerned, there has been a lot of back and forth and questions about whether or not the jurors can, in fact, just listen to the evidence and judge what they have heard from both sides in this trial and make a fair assessment of whether or not they believe Donald Trump is guilty of the crimes that he has been alleged to have committed.
All right, our CBS News national correspondent Jericka Duncan reporting for us live from Lower Manhattan. Jericka, thank you so much. As we, again, are awaiting more details on that situation in Lower Manhattan, we want to let people know that inside the courtroom, if you're just joining us, the court did finalize its alternate jurors in the trial of former President Donald Trump. That fire, the details that Jericka was talking about there, we are still awaiting word from officials about what exactly took place. But in the meantime, this is a case, as we've been talking about, that has garnered attention from all over the world and questions all week about how challenging it might be to find people who could truly be impartial in this particular case. I believe we have our Jessica Levinson. We are waiting to talk to our Jessica Levinson on that. But this case, as we have said, has really kind of focused attention on the idea of whether or not a person like Donald Trump, known around the world, a former president, could in fact receive a trial as any other citizen could, a fair trial, with a jury of peers in selecting those jurors from New York City, a place where, his name is obviously very well known. And so what we know now is that that process of selecting not only those 12 jurors, the men and women who will sit on that jury, but also the alternate jurors, that process has now been finalized in the former president's New York criminal trial. And so the question is, will opening statements take place as the judge in this case has suggested on Monday? It would appear as though that would be the case, although we will wait to hear official word from inside. But that had been the suggestion from the judge in this case all along, is that was the intention, to choose the alternates by the end of this week so that the proceedings could in fact happen with those opening statements set for Monday. So we will hopefully have some of those details for you soon and get that information to you. But what we know about the jurors who have been seated so far, the 12 men and women who have been seated in this case, I believe we have a graphic to show the breakdown of the 12 that we have seen or that we know about. And these are the 12. You see among them a salesman, an investment banker, lawyers, and a speech therapist. We know that it is a jury that will be comprised of 7 men and 5 women. And we're waiting to find out some of the biographical sort of details, the rough details or the rough outline of the background of some of the alternate jurors. So joining us now is CBS News law enforcement consultant Richard Esposito. He is also a former spokesperson for the NYPD, joining us by phone. Thanks so much for being with us as we cover this developing situation. I want to ask you, Richard, about what questions you have as we're getting these details about this fire that took place, I believe, across the street in a park area outside of the courthouse where former President Trump's trial is taking place. We see investigators on the scene, Richard. We know a number of FDNY, NYPD officials are there. What are the immediate questions that you have?
The immediate questions that both police and fire officials are going to be asking are obviously the extent of the injury. The person appears to be someone about 20 years old, a dark complexion, who got up off a bench and then set himself on fire. So there's always the question why, but that'll take sort of second place to, is the person okay? They've sent him to Bellevue Hospital now, And now they'll start exploring the motive as well as looking to see how the person set themselves on fire, what kind of accelerant they might have used. The fire was very hard to extinguish, which leads them initially, and I just want to stress that this is initially, to think an accelerant might have been used. That would make it harder to extinguish, lighter fuel, gasoline, et cetera. So those are the initial questions. Then, does the person have any connection to the trial? Does the person have any political persuasion? Those are all the kinds of questions they'll put together as they prepare reports on it as the day develops.
Richard, as we look at these images of investigators there on the scene and officials there, we see the barriers in the area where Jericka said this was part of the area that had been set aside for demonstrators because in a case like this, a very high-profile case, there were expected to be a number of demonstrators. In terms of the response, how much of a challenge would these kinds of barriers pose in responding to a situation like this?
You know, police and fire have a lot of experience with perimeter barriers. You see them on New Year's Eve, you see them at the UN. They know both how to put them up, how to take them down, and before they put them up, they are looking carefully at routes in and out. So virtually no impediment on them getting to the location where the person is in need of assistance. It is important to note that while the area is set aside for demonstrators of any kind that want to be there, it's not clear whether this person is a demonstrator yet, and that still remains to be seen. What police officials are reporting now at police headquarters is simply they got a 911 call for an aided person, and it was a male that the ambulance service, EMS, picked up and took to a hospital, and they tell people that there are no additional safety concerns to anyone in the area. That's what they'll be saying now.
All right. Richard Esposito. Richard, thank you so much for your insight and analysis on that still developing situation. We appreciate it.
Talk to you later.